Hi everyone, this is Stewie Zhu and I'm the founder and CEO of DCC program, Distributed Credit Chain. I was a serial entrepreneur and I was study at London School of Economics. Before that, I studied at Oxford and Yale in finance and economics. I quit my PhD study and I came back to my home country, China, to be an entrepreneur and working on fintech in 2014, which is a good time because at that time it was between the early stage to the middle stage of that industry, and it actually creates a lot of really good companies or startups, and a lot of them are already listed in New York Exchange and NASDAQ. And the market cap starts from 0 to like 13 trillion, Chinese yuan. And but it also causes some like really big problems and super high interest rate, and also especially the distorted credit profile. And that actually makes me to think, how do we actually to reshape the whole credit ecosystem? So that is actually the reason for me to create DCC, the distributed credit ecosystem. And we try to rebuild a new distributed ecosystem for credit. And so all those institutions who want to practice those financial services which require the credit data can join this ecosystem, and we can get rid of those problems I mentioned earlier from the traditional financial institutions and those so-called big fintech companies, like the super high transaction cost and super high interest rate in certain part of the world, and also the distorted credit profile. So that is what we're working on, And we came to Korea, and we want to show us to the Korean people. Well, if I look back to the financial crisis in 2008, you can find there were a lot of problems, and there were a lot of people like experts and academia. They're talking about the reason for the credit risk. I think there were a couple of like good points, like financial attrition or the conflict of interests coming from those financial intermediaries. And in my view, one problem that you cannot solve before there is the technology is the information asymmetrics. I think like if you say the traditional financial institutions, like they actually own your financial data. And if you look at those fintech companies like Qudian, those very big companies already listed in NASDAQ, like earning like billions annually, they actually have the ownership of your financial data individually. And they spend tons of money every month try to complete your credit data profile. But it never succeeds because of the mechanism there is not working. You cannot ask for a central, like a government, to organize a company and pull every big data service provider together to shape an organization and say, okay, now we're going to share the data. This is not going to work because of conflict of interest. So in this case, you actually produce a self-defeating equilibrium. That is, everybody wants to buy everyone else's data, and everybody will protect their data as their core assets. In this case, you will have super high cost for those financial intermediaries. So how do we redeem this cost? You only do that by charging super high interest rate. In this case, people have to borrow money at a higher interest rate, and once if they cannot pay back, so you actually have a higher default rate. In this case, those companies will charge a higher interest rate. That's a very specific but typical example. And also you can see a lot of like startups in East Asia and like China, those fintech companies, they said they provide those AI-based risk control techniques for doing the credit analysis. But actually, if you look deep into it, none of these things worked. Because in certain markets, no one is playing by the rule. So the only way, or the only equilibrium in the market is everybody is just charging a higher interest rate. So I think that is the, the reason to cause this credit, what we call the subprime credit problem. And we try to reshape the whole ecosystem because we found blockchain as a technology is the only way out, is the only way to provide a comprehensive solution to that problem. We actually issued our D app last month, and this month we opened our platform, and we will publicate another D app next month. Now we're focusing on, and the D app actually works really well. I think we already have like over 20,000 times downloads, and it already happens over like 2,000 times for landing. We're now working closely with our strategic partners because the whole landing process is very long, and you have multiple parts who will involved in this whole business, and we want to move them from the traditional world onto the blockchain, which is our DCC ecosystem. And that actually involves those online traffic directing companies, and those risk control algorithm providers, and the capital providers, and the vendors like who's doing the ABS. So a lot of people and a lot of institutions. So now we choose very strong strategic partners. Like most of them, they're already in the credit business, especially those online micro lending, like small cash loan and a car loan vendors, institutions like that. We invite them to join our ecosystem. And secondly, we work closely with the top schools in the world. Like we have the strategic, some academic research joint programs with Oxford University, Wharton School of Business, and in China we co-work with Beijing University. And we found the best economists and financial economists to study the application of the blockchain technology into the credit problem. So that is what we are working on. I think there's definitely a bubble, because you cannot just say like I'm going to apply those techniques into all these areas. So two things. First, you got to pick up the right area to work on. Like people will say, well, finance is definitely the first way to change. I don't think so, because even though I work on finance is very hard to touch because it's so old. It's like it's like you have so many big banks and big financial institutions, and if you're gonna move them, you don't move it at whole. You work really slowly, step by step. Build up your ecosystem from a very small community, grow it up. So I would say like online advertisement maybe is a better way to apply that technology. So if someone's saying like, okay, I'm gonna change the world with the blockchain, I don't agree with that. So you cannot change it everywhere. You're just gonna need to pick up the specific area to work on. That's the first thing. The second thing is like too many people, they were talking about those, the public chain. I know this is definitely very important because we cannot build the empire on sands or something, very soft. But actually, I really suggest the people to look at the product, because knowledge, in my view, they have different layers. 90% of the users in Korea, in China, I believe, 90% of those people who are interested in crypto tokens, they do not understand those solidity language, those things there. And I'm not sure, they said they will be interested, but actually they're not a big fan of that. So we should put our emphasis more onto the product level. So actually, and I think that is very important thing for us. So we that is my view on the blockchain. And also I think currently there would be some we need to put resources in some very solid project so that we can provide some data, and the data is like the last generation of so-called the internet. So we have the DAU, like daily active users, something like that. We should put more emphasis on those numbers rather than just saying, okay, what is your coding progress, something like that. This is my comment. Well, I think my advice would be, if you're working on blockchain, you definitely are working on the sexy topic today. But again, I would say you need to seriously to think about the area you're gonna work on. You cannot just made it up at demand. This is not gonna work. So the exact topic you choose to work on is very important. That's the first thing. The second thing is you're gonna think twice before you jump in, because it's a long way to go, say 5 years, 10 years. Blockchain is actually a topic integrated high expectations now. That means like you're working in a very long time period. So you would actually be committed way more than if you want to do a startup in traditional internet. So in this case, think twice and find the right topic. I think that's a very fundamental thing you should consider before you jump in, and that is my advice. So a little bit more about DCC, where we have certain achievement, like we raised over $17 million in only 7 days, and our major investor JRR Capital is the major investor of Binance, which is a very famous exchange in the world, and we have very top internet entrepreneurs from China. Most of them from the fintech industry, and we have very good connections with schools. If you look at our advisory, we have the professors from top universities like Yale, Columbia, those schools, and also we have the very good advisor team from those KOLs in the fintech industry, and also from the Wall Street. So actually, we are trying to collaborating resources from everywhere in the world and different layers to make a consensus on how do we reshape the credit industry, because credit is actually a way more complicated problem than the foreign exchange. If you see the numbers, maybe the foreign exchange annually is a big number, but credit market is way bigger. So that's actually a much more difficult area to work on. But we choose to take the challenge, and with DCC, we want to reshape that industry. So thank you for paying attention to us. This is Stewie Zhu, and if you have any questions, please find me at my email address. Thank you.